Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to some more Warpforge. And today we are doing a little bit of a campaign update, but really what I wanted to get out there is where am I at with my collection? Where am I at with my deck building? And I had a long stream last night. I was pretty tired by the end. So if you didn't catch that, feel free to go watch the VOD over on Twitch at my channel. I always have the link to my Twitch in the description, so feel free to check that out. I don't stream often. I do try to stream when there are drops, but I've been a little busy. Yeah, hopefully we'll be streaming a little bit more. I'd like to do it here and there if I can, because it's a different experience than YouTube. Yeah, feel free to check that out and see how the decks played out last night. So that's what I'm going to be bringing today. I wanted to get a video up on the channel for the weekend. It's Easter here. Got a long weekend, thankfully, so I'm going to go visit some family. And before I do that and try to grind my way into the top 50, because I have not been playing a ton of ranked ladder the last couple weeks, I wanted to talk about the Tau decks and where we're at. So, as always, if you like the channel, like the content, feel free to like and subscribe and hit the little bell to make sure that you get updated when I have more videos. Trying to do at least, I would say, 2 videos a week, and really, put some stuff out there that's going to be helpful for folks. So thanks so much, as always, for your support. So let's get into it. I think the first thing we want to talk about is where am I at with my collection? I have used all my wild cards. I really, as much as I love to save them and hold on and like open packs and really optimize, at this point I'm just like, all right, look, if I open a duplicate legendary, which I did, and we'll talk about that, then it's going to go in the Forge, and, I'll end up getting the value later. I'll get more legendary wild cards through the Forge. So I finished my campaign, and as you had seen, the first card that I opened was Shadowsun, and then this was also the legendary that I got at the end of the campaign. So unfortunately, we did chuck it into the Forge. It does look very cool. It got us a bunch of Forge points, and, before we know it, we're probably going to hit 20 or 21 to get that other legendary, so it's not a big deal. It did also open for the greater good in some packs, so those were the 2 legendaries that we got pretty lucky with. So I guess we'll start with the legendaries. What are the 3 that I opened 3 and I crafted 3. I opened also the Honored Ethereal. So the 3 I chose to craft, I just want to recommend pretty much to everyone. Emergency Dispensation. This card is just very good, and I think that every Tau deck will play it. So I really think you can't go wrong making this, and I kind of underrated it because I was like, oh, I just want to get the bodies, of the Darkstrider on She, and I do want on She, but I actually haven't found that I'm really like struggling without on She. I think, it's always matchup dependent. I do think he's pretty good, specifically for maybe like the Battlesuits deck, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I've been really happy with Dispensation, just as I've been happy with Longstrike. I think that it is just kind of the staple top of your curve that you want. You get so much value out of it. It can turn the game around. It's just an incredibly powerful card. And for the last one, I chose Darkstrider. I wouldn't fault anyone for going maybe on She instead, or if you're really into drones, maybe going for the experimental drones, right? Because these are the other options, right? It's on She and experimental drones. So here's hoping we'll hit those at some point, or they'll show up in the shop. But for now, I feel like my builds are operating pretty well. I think if I had to maybe do something differently, Darkstrider, I just haven't gotten to play the card a ton. I still think it's really, really efficient. But part of me feels like the 6-drop slot, maybe leaves something to be desired. And I think Anshi actually is maybe a little bit more of an essential card than Darkstrider, just to give my very honest take. So it's not to say Darkstrider is still an excellent card. And in certain builds, it's going to be better than Anshi. But I think that there's a lot happening at the 3-drop slot, and I should have maybe considered that a little bit more when I was doing my crafting. But I love this card. I've just been really excited to play with it. So, and I knew I wanted to try these kind of drone or aggro builds, so I was like, okay, Darkstrider fits right into that. So, take my opinion with a grain of salt, but I think the essentials are probably Dispensation and Long Strike, and then I would probably advocate going for Anshi. So that's where we're at with our collection here, and this is just with the premium campaign, right? And whatever packs we got, through our missions and then the drops, of course, and then we used all of our epic wild cards as well because thankfully there's not a ton of epics I was missing. The only one is Cold Star Battlesuit. There's one in the campaign I just haven't picked up yet, and I think that this card is probably the most lackluster of the battlesuits. So, and we'll talk about that too. So I just wouldn't recommend crafting this. So if you've got enough materials, I think let's just get the legendaries out of here. Pathfinder, said it before, was one of my favorite cards when I was looking at it. It's just so good. It builds a board by itself, right? On turn 4 or turn 6. And the Marker Light 2 on Rally is really relevant because especially in the matchup against Chaos, they're going to take the Camouflage offensive trait or whatever it is. And Pathfinder is just another tool, not unlike Fireside Marksman, which is a card I've really been enjoying. Allows you to apply Marker Light on Rally because that gets through Camouflage. So don't forget that. And Pathfinder has just been extremely efficient. Very happy with it. I'll talk about some of these cards because they're interesting. Vespid, I just think is probably a staple as well. It's just you need flankers. You need things to do early. You need things to be able to be responsive but also proactive. And Vespid just does a really great job of that, especially if you're thinking about Aun'va. It's getting plus health, so it's not really losing much. So that can be really great. Fusillade, I'm still feeling out, like, is this card necessary in every Tau build? I think because of the Tau mirrors, because everyone's playing them. And I think it's pretty dang good into a lot of board states because it's just a strictly better Storm Raven. I think Relentless Fuselage should probably be at least a 1-of in your decks. And then I would still probably try playing 2. I think it is really good. Now, when we come to like what are other essential cards, it's a little bit different, right? Because it's going to kind of boil down to what decks are you trying to build. I do think Enforcer Battlesuit goes in the Battlesuit deck, and I also think that you could put it into the Omysos deck and Aun'va. So you should pick up one from the starter deck, and then I would say if you have a wild card kicking around, it's just a really efficient thing, and the fact that it drops 3 Vanguard units essentially, right? And these are 1 energy, so it's pretty easy to get them discounted. You're getting a lot of value from Enforcer Battlesuit. It's just a pretty healthy body as well. Now, I think Fireside Marksman is excellent, and I would definitely want to have 2 of these, but it is obviously more important for drone builds, not so much battlesuits. So if your jam is battlesuits, then maybe don't spend wildcards on Marksman. And then if your jam is still battlesuits, then you want to play your stealth battlesuits, you want to play your broadside battlesuits, as well as the Enforcer that we talked about. Now, same thing with Dynamic Offensive. This is obviously, the reason to play battlesuits because you're giving them flank. And for those who don't know, there are, giving a giant Riptide battlesuit. Let's just go to him real quick. Giving this thing flank, pretty great. It's just another long strike in your deck, right? So that's the big reason to be playing Dynamic Offensive. And also, giving obviously broadside battlesuit, same thing, right? It's got long range as well. So Dynamic Offensive, you can get one from the campaign. You should only have to craft one. Same as Savior Protocols as well. And then Storm of Fire, I don't think is anywhere in the campaign. And this is a card I actually weighed a lot on the stream of like not making. But I do think that the more I've been thinking about it, I was talking to a buddy as well who's been playing this game a lot. That Storm of Fire might be essential for the Omysos aggro drone lists. What's ironic is that when you play Aun'va drones, you just get this card whenever you want it from Aun'va. So I don't know that it's necessary to craft. I would say if you want to hold off on crafting this, that's totally reasonable. But I do think where we're going to go toward with a Omysos drone build, I think that Storm of Fire makes a ton of sense in that build. And we we'll talk a little bit more about that. So just to kind of close out here, because I know it's a lot of epics to kind of like digest. Pathfinder to me, essential. Stingwings, I would say, essential. After that, it's kind of up to you where you want to go. But I think that broadside battlesuit is up there. Firesight marksman is up there. Enforcer battlesuit and fusillade. And then it's basically, do you want to play battlesuits, right, with these three? Do you want to play drones potentially with these four? So, and then I wouldn't fret about not having Cold Star battlesuit, because you're not gonna see it in any of the lists we talk about. We were missing some rares too, so we did craft those. And I won't go over that too much, but I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on where we're at with the collection. So let's get into the meat of it. I don't know why I have Faro mid-range here. I must have just selected it. Okay. So we've got plenty of decks here, right? And I think right now, obviously Gaz is very much in the meta. Tervagon is very much in the meta. And then Tau. You're going to see a lot of Tau. So, depending on what you want to be playing on the ladder, I'm going to give you my take and like how I would scale these warlords and these deck lists, so that I can kind of give you, an honest understanding of like genuinely what I think are the strongest builds that I have right now, although I am missing some potentially key cards. So, look at your collection, see what makes sense. So let's start with what I feel like is the least consistent, potentially least powerful deck, and that's going to be Shadowsun suits. So I basically came away last night. I went 5-3, I think, on stream with this. I played about 8 games with it. And I did some tweaking as I was going. I think where I'm at with Shadowsun is that she'll probably be excellent in certain metas, but I actually don't think she's great in the current meta. And we'll get into more of that about like why I feel like drones and specifically companion cards are kind of the strength of the Tau. And I don't think battlesuits are necessarily the strength of the Tau. One of the biggest reasons, besides the dynamic offensive to play battlesuits, is this card, Technological Supremacy. Right, +3 health to a friendly unit. If it's a vehicle or battlesuit, heal it completely. Right, so it's gonna heal it completely after it gets the +3 health. So it's just it's huge. You can make some of your units have 7 or 8 health like immediately, right, for 1 energy. So there are some clear reasons why, and I'll leave Dynamic Offensive up for people who haven't seen it. Clear reasons why you should be playing battlesuits and why it's an archetype. And it kind of stands to reason that Shadowsun with like a little bit more health, kind of an aggressive bent, or the ability at 1 energy to clear a 3 health unit means that you're a little bit more tempo based, right? So if I'm basically playing, Uriel, right, that can clear 3 health enemy units, for at a small cost, then I can also drop my other units and then start getting ahead. So I think it's a similar kind of dynamic. The problem though is that you're just not able to like, I think, threaten as much damage consistently, which is interesting because you've got things like the Crisis Bodyguard kind of helps you set up, right? Same with Honored Ethereal. And then you've got Stealth Battlesuit, which gets you a ton of value. You've got Broadside Battlesuit, kind of the same thing, right? Value Sacrifice, kind of like as a stopgap to kind of continue to help you, set up. Enforcer, and then you can, get your Riptides, which are a huge problem in the late game. Like this has to be answered. And if it has flank, you've gotten a long strike out of it, and it has shield, and it can generate more shields if it doesn't die. So there are a lot of positives to the deck, and I think Anshi does make this deck better. It feels like it's missing something, and I think if I cut, like, let's say a Broadside Battlesuit, because you can't play protocols in this deck, right, because you're not running drones, but you are running some companion cards, right, with Enforcer and Broadside, so having an Anshi makes a lot of sense, right, because it's also just a big value unit that also gets you the invocations. And so I think what I would advocate for is, if you are going to build Shadowsuits, if this is your jam and what you want to do, you need Anshi. I think you need him to kind of smooth out the curve of the deck and get like the best bang for your buck off of some of your companion cards, because that's where I feel like a lot of the Tao's power is, that you get to drop a 5-drop or a 6-drop that then also drops like other threats, other value, right? And so I've had people like Will of Gork, my 1 card, right? But it created 2 or 3 other units. So like they're looking and they're like, oh, they have a decent board from just 1 card. But that's the power, is that you don't have to overextend, and you can play 1 card that's going to get you like half a board's worth of value, you know? So that's kind of just like where I've landed with this build, is like, I think Anshi helps this deck quite a bit. Obviously just, I think he specifically says troop, if I'm not mistaken. And so that discount on your Riptide, on your Enforcer, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. The discount on these cards matters a whole lot. Now, I still went 5-3 in you know, I went up 150 points last night just playing against players. And went 5-3 and like felt like the deck was still fine. I just think in the long run, this deck is not going to be enough to punch through, you know, to beat Gaz all the time, you know, or to out pressure, or be able to create enough value that you're going to be able to deal with Tervigon and things like that. You've got some cards that really make this deck feel like you're doing illegal stuff, you know, with the dynamic offensive technological supremacy, the fact that you can marker light a troop and coordinate engagement. So you're spending 4 energy to kill something, right? That's another strength, I think, of Shadowsun in particular. So this is what I'm running. This is what I would run with the collection that I have. But I do think that if you open your Shadowsun, you're super excited to do some battle suits. And I think there are more builds that she can have. I just haven't explored that quite yet. Then you should probably either craft or hope to open Anshi. I think it makes the deck a bit better. So this is where I'm at with this. And generally I've been having a ton of fun, but I just think the power level is not quite what it is for the drone builds, which, surprise, surprise. I think everyone has said, you know, drones are just, the fact that they have flying and 3 health is just really challenging. So still a little early. Gotta grab some coffee here. Okay, let's just keep it moving. So here's the deck I would kind of put in the middle, in terms of viability and power level. We're definitely missing experimental drones. I think it's probably makes sense for this build, but I also think it's maybe a little bit better in Aun'va, because of just the way that kind of build and warlord operates. But this is kind of where I arrived. Pathfinder, again, you're seeing as like kind of the staple. Obviously we don't need a ton of 2-drops because we were going to be using our ability to make drones with Omysos. But I think coordinate engagement, maybe it's not a staple in a slower format like ours, but I just think it's massively efficient. And I think even with drones as well, like even if you can't kill the target because you don't have marker light, right? You marker light 3, you've got a bunch of drones. You're going to kill whatever you need to kill. So I think coordinated engagement just feels like a staple to me. Obviously, we got our boy Dark Strider showing up and doing quite a lot of work in this build. DS8 support turret. Probably makes sense to have an Omysos and in Aun'va. So I just think this card with 5 health is seriously a problem to deal with. No surprise we're running Savior Protocols, and we're going to be running the Storm of Fire. I think that, you know, it's not hard to go wide with this deck, and it's not hard to go wide with Aun'va, except Aun'va always has access to Storm of Fire. And that's why, you know, not to spoil too much, I think Aun'va might have a little bit of an edge. But I do think that it makes sense in this build, right? You're just kind of, you're trying to basically sequence your turns so that you can get to a point where, you know, I mean, the best thing you can do is like turn 3 Savior Protocol, turn 4 Piranha, right? You play Piranha, you play both of your drones for free, and you've gotten like so much value in tempo. That particular combo, I think, is why drones are probably the best strategy. It just, you get so much out of it, right? Crisis Bodyguard, Honored Ethereal also does quite a lot of work when you've got a bunch of drones lying around. You could just give 2 of them Vanguard, which is not bad. And Piranha does a ton of work. This thing is everyone, as soon as you see this thing, you kill it, right? Like that's going to be how it is. But the fact that you can go turn 3, Savior Protocol, turn 4, Piranha, and then if it lives, you could go like turn 5, Broadside Battlesuit, drop both of my missile drones, right, for free. It's so much value and it's so much pressure, especially when you've got Storm of Fire that you could potentially draw, right, and just like absolutely obliterate your opponent. And I think I played with the numbers a little bit here. So, you know, it's possible you should be running 2 Broadside Battlesuit, but also like Fireside Marksman in any other drone builds just does so much work. It's such an efficient unit. Again, it's another marker light on rally, which is really important when your opponents have, you know, camouflage or like other things that are making it so you can't hit them. And the fact that it buffs +1 ranged attack on all your drones is also really, really a potent threat, especially if you go, you know, you play this into a valued sacrifice or something like that. It's going to be a real problem for your opponent. Enforcer Battlesuit, you've seen it in both lists. I'm pretty sure it's in the final list too, so I think it is kind of a staple 6-drop for the deck. Burgeoning Empire, I felt like this is the deck that could use a bit of card advantage. And you can just have this sit in your hand as you're setting up drones in the early turns and picking things off. And then it allows you, because you're not running Battlesuits, right, so you can't run the Draw 2 spell, I think having a 1-up Burgeoning Empire makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, Mr. Longstrike at the top of the curve. So what do I think about this deck? And aggro is kind of, drone aggro is kind of a misnomer. Because drones need setup, you can still close the game on 6, 7, or 8 potentially, but it does need setup, right? And your best is going to be Protocol into Piranha, into maybe a Battlesuit or a Fireside Marksman into Valued Sacrifice, and then close it out with like, you know, Storm of Fire or something like that. But it does feel like what it does against particular warlords is pretty good. I went 2-1, and I think both of my wins were against Gaz last night. With Omaisos, because they can't efficiently, unless they've got Makari, right, deal with the 3 health drones early on, and you can clear their Garrote. So you're just able to start setting up your board where they can't really do anything, and then as long as you're not overextending, you're going to get so much value off of Savior Protocol and Piranha that whenever you're playing, you know, you play an Enforcer Battlesuit by itself, they might have to Will of Gork, right? They probably shouldn't, but they might have to. So you really just put them in these positions that are really tough to overcome. Even just going, you know, your Warlord ability into a DS8 turret into Crisis Bodyguard, right? It's like, how am I getting to this DS8 support turret that is just hitting me in the face and whatever units I'm trying to play every single turn, right? So I think that there's a lot of consistency in this deck. We're going to talk about why I don't, you know, I think that Aun'va is still probably a little bit of a better option, but this is kind of where I'm at with the build, and I feel pretty good about it. I mean, I want to test a little bit more if, like, you need the Storm of Fire, but I do think that you do. So that's where I would be with Omaisos, and definitely let me know in the comments what's been working for you, you know, which cards you would recommend, stuff like that. This feels pretty close to what I would want it to be. I don't feel like I'm missing a ton here. So we'll see. Also, a side note, I thought that the Greater Good was like a card that might make sense in this deck as like a way to protect your drones, but I just think that the card's like generally not that good. So I cut it from this deck. So, the Pieds de Resistance, which is Drone City by yours truly, Mr. Aun'va. I'm still playing around with the build a little bit, but I went, I think, 4 or 5-0 with this list last night. And even though there were some really close games, it just feels like Aun'va, because he can pull Storm of Fire when you want it, right? It basically, the way it works is that you're essentially always putting a board down, right? If you've played Savior Protocols or if you've played Piranha, you're always adding to the board a lot of bodies. If there's ever a low tempo turn from your opponent, you just Storm of Fire them, right? And it's really not hard to set up lethal, especially if you get, and this is why Pathfinder is great, especially if you get the marker light drones going in the later game. It's just not hard to cobble together, 25 damage out of like 4 or 5 units. It's just not hard with marker light that can hit, a warlord. So I do think that this deck benefits the most from Kion Tactics because, again, you are playing more of a control, shell, and your fusillades are going to get buffed by that. But also Kion Tactics just allows you to utilize the drones that you're playing to clear things out. It's possible I should be running this in the Omysos deck, but I've been really happy, I think, just with playing this as a one-of in this deck to pair with a Relentless Fusillade. For the greater good, I think it makes the most sense in an Aun'va kind of control drone setup build, but the card is very, very far from the heroism card for the Space Marines. So don't get baited into thinking that this is like a card you should jam into your deck all the time. It's just not that good. But I think it serves an important role in this deck where all you need, especially in the late game, is one good turn to set up your drones, and then you just storm or fire them away. So I think for the greater good kind of makes the most sense here. So we're definitely running the coordinated engagement again. Darkstrider, still good value. The fact that you can marker light your opponent, right, and maybe cash in on that with all your drones later, just really, really excellent. Obviously, you can hide our drones. DS8 support turret, I still think makes a lot of sense in this deck, although it's a little harder to protect. I still think that it's a 3-drop that I would like to be playing. Dispensation, protocols, again, your best curve is going to be turn 1, heal myself, turn 2, heal myself, for the most part, and put a shield on yourself, because that's what you can do on 3 energy. And then, or just go, rather, heal yourself, protocol, piranha, everything else. Like, it's always going to be hard to beat that curve of protocols into piranha. So you're going to hard mulligan, I would say, in both drone builds for savior protocols and piranha. I think that's probably correct. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really different here. We're kind of running the same package. Valued Sacrifice is just the best in this deck because you also get to buff the health if you play it on 6. Marksman, again, doing a ton of work. So why play Aun'va over Omysos? And I said it earlier, but the fact that you can the dynamic gameplay that this warlord has is what his strength is. You would think that, Tigurius should be the best Ultramarine warlord because you get to pick like all these different things that you want to do. It's just not the same thing, and the fact that those are you have to use those things on the spot is also an issue. You're almost always going to be using Aun'va's ability and then doing whatever you can actually pay for, but you do have the upside that, like, if there's a low tempo turn, you can essentially just draw, give all +1 armor to all my troops, draw, I'm going to hold this shields card. But you can do so much, like I can play a piranha. Next turn, I got to get rid of something, right? Because they haven't cleared this. I can put a shield on this, clear their 4 health unit, and then it's still there, right? And I've only played 3 energy to do that. So then I can, maybe play, a discounted drone or something. Like there's so much that you can do, and that's why he's actually really hard to play, because I think there are so many different lines that you can do with him. It's really crazy. The Watercast is really showing up pretty strong with this deck. But I just feel like you're always applying pressure in the sense that if they do not clear your board, you will storm of fire them, right? Like that's how you have to play against this deck, is like, if they've got more than like 2 or 3 units on the board, if I'm not interacting with the board, I'm dead, right? And I think the threat of activation for Storm of Fire is huge for this deck, and you just get to play, similar to Omysos, right? You're playing Savior Protocol and Piranha to discount all of your other companion cards, right? And those are just getting you like a ton of value. You don't need to draw any cards in this deck. I've really never run out of cards. I tried putting the Burgeoning Empire in here. I just don't think you really need it. And as long as you don't get absolutely run over, from like tempo, it's just a really hard deck to deal with. And I think in a control meta, even into Gaz, you've got so much threat that they have to deal with. And just there's one turn they don't have Will of Gorg, right? Like, that's it. So this is drone, welcome to Drone City population, us and probably every other person who's playing Tau right now. This is the build I would say if you want to climb in these last couple days and you really want to play Tau and you want to play the best kind of version of Tau, I think this is it. I think Aun'va is it. I think drone-centric build is it. And I think as long as you've got most of these staple cards, you're probably going to do well. It is a steep learning curve. The deck is not easy to pilot, but and you'll see that from my stream if you check it out. I was struggling at times, but I do think that it has the highest skill ceiling, and therefore I think you can outplay your opponents quite a lot. So I'm sure this video is probably long enough. Why don't I wrap it up there? Thank you all for tuning in as always. We're at 3,500 right now. Man, Space Marine and Pudis, Buggy, and Timic, I mean, they're all like 4,500. That's going to be tough. But I think the bottom is 37, maybe 36. Yeah, and these are all pretty close together. So I'm hoping BJ, I know Ecclesiarch BJ and I were talking about just trying to get on the top 50, even though we've been busy with other stuff. So here's hoping all three of us can get on there. But Ecclesiarch is climbing. BJ's been obviously breaking in here, and I'm hoping to as well. But I hope these kind of like, little my 2 cents about the Tau and the deck lists help you guys out. And I hope you're enjoying it. And if you don't like the Tau, I don't think we're going to see nerfs for next season. I really wouldn't assume that, because we'll have that balance patch probably come, announced in the next week or so, because it usually is a week after the new season. I wouldn't expect that, but I would expect to see buffs probably of other factions. So that's what I got for you today. If we were really loading up here, this would be our setup with Mr. sitting down, as Harry and I were talking about him on our podcast. And that's what I got for you today. And I will, as always, catch you guys next time. Thank you.